remember one sales rep years ago said, the most expensive product you'll ever buy is the one that doesn't work or the one that you don't take.
Correct. Because we as the FDA are going to check if there is anything wrong with this specific batch number. And the FDA will also pay for that research.
The surprising thing was that the multivitamin group had the fewest overall deficiencies. And philosophically that makes sense to me because so many of the vitamins need each other to work well. I do see magnesium very heavily advertised. They estimate, I've seen estimates that, anywhere from about 65 up to 85% of people are deficient. A sniffle, you sound nasally, they're really, really cautious.
How can you be sick when you work in a health food store?
It happens occasionally.
Welcome to Health in Focus. My name is Jacobus Hollewijn. Interesting program today. We're going to talk about supplements retail, vitamin retail. I got myself involved about 30 years ago in the actual retail aspect and have even owned my own store. My daughter, one of my daughters, my oldest daughter, my favorite middle child, is here today with us. Her name is Rebecca Hull, and Rebecca actually started working with me when she was 9. It was not child labor. I want to make that clear. She did get fed at home, so didn't get paid, but we fed her at home when she came home after a long day. She always enjoyed it. She always enjoyed retail, and at that young age, it was always fun to have her around the adults who were working there. She always brought a lot of freshness and happiness and joy to the workplace. And Rebecca started working at my store and my wife's store, her mom, when we opened up about 17 years ago. And she went back to school and came back, traveled to Europe, studied in Europe, came back and has become the manager of the store, not because she is our daughter, but because she is so knowledgeable, versatile, observant. She is up to date on products. She really wants to understand what's going on by communicating with reps and brokers, and therefore she gets a much broader idea about the industry. Now, in this industry also, we decided to have a point of sale system, a computer system, and that's a whole other ball game. We always were told that once you have a point of sale system, that things will go a lot faster. Well, they go faster, but it's a lot of work. So it is not an easy choice. And as we talk today, I would like to ask Rebecca, because she is so much involved with the day-to-day workings behind the scenes and in the store, in the retail, working with the employees more than what I do. And so I thought, let's talk about some issues that you as customers, when you walk into a retail store, what are some of the things that you're paying attention to? What are the things you don't know that are happening behind the scenes? And I think once you get to know those topics, you may actually be more conscientious when you walk in. So, Rebecca, great to have you back on the program.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks for doing all the work that you're doing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because it often goes unrecognized, because it's part of who you are and what you do. When you are working at the store, what are things that you think back on 17, 18 years ago that went into the philosophy of the store that you're working at?
So like you say, about 18 years ago, we were designing the interior space of the store. We had basically a raw warehouse type space to work with and decide what we wanted. And one of the thing that the entire store was built around was a seating area. It was sort of a place to sit, to read, have reference books, maybe sit down with an employee if, we need to dive into things, look at books, look at images, anything like that, or just, sit down and decompress while shopping. We've also in the meantime, added toys to that area so that parents can shop with their kids and have them distracted for a few minutes, because shopping for vitamins is not actually that easy. There's so much on the market. And so as a retail store, we task ourselves with choosing products from the thousands and thousands that are out there of what we want to offer people. So, aside from the seating area as sort of a central space in our store, we made sure that the shelves aren't too close to the front of the store so that there's enough space to sort of walk in, look around, get your bearings. We have signage everywhere so that it's very clear, where the minerals are, where vitamin A is, and all of those things. We have our store set up by basically categories and structure function sections. So it would be like, here's the vitamin A, here's the vitamin D, here's all your minerals, here's your, adrenal support, where a lot of stores that you'll go into might have more brand blocked sections. So it's like, well, all the Garden of Life is right here, all of the new chapters right there. So you don't get to compare always like this vitamin D versus that vitamin D. We've chosen to put all the vitamin D together so that you can compare apples and apples. That's a big, maybe a differentiator with our store. Other than that, we've, just aesthetically, we've chosen to use very warm tones, kind of earth tones. Everything like the shelves are almost a copper tone. The floors are stained concrete in a nice like red burgundy. So everything was just designed to feel calm and inviting, and that there's enough space to walk around, to stand in front of a shelf so that you don't feel that you're in the way. You don't want anything too high or too low or too narrow.
It's not always easy because you're still dealing with shelves.
Yeah.
And depending on how many products you have, you're going to have to do the bottom shelf. But I remember going to the old video stores.
Oh, yeah.
And how often did I really want to look what's on the bottom shelf? Yeah. And you always hope that everything at eye height is what is the bestseller or the latest version. That was not really possible in a store like this, because if you work with alphabet or you work with certain sections that contain a combination of vitamins, like a vitamin A and D and B complexes, for example, that takes up a certain section. Well, you cannot put them all in the middle. You're going to have to work on your way down, and people are not always looking on the bottom shelf, but that's why there are employees, because they can say, oh, the one you're looking for is actually down here. Yeah. And then people get used to that. That's just the way of a retail store.
Yeah, and philosophically, I probably differ from, the eye height thing is well known to put top sellers or the things you really want to push at eye height for customers. But again, with the way the store is set up, indeed, it's like, well, if I have vitamin A at the top and then D and then K, but maybe K is a really good seller right now, it's still on the bottom shelf because I can't throw a bottle of K in the middle of the D's. So it is set up a little different, and I, diverge from that philosophy as well at times, because I think there is so much, that can get overlooked. There's formulas that are unique. There's products that I think people aren't always looking for because they don't even know it exists. And so those ones I actually like to put at eye level when I can. And for instance, like I might put melatonin on the bottom shelf because somebody doesn't have to happen upon melatonin and say like, well, what does this do? They come in and they say, I'm looking for melatonin. And I can say it's right there. And, it's lowest milligram to highest milligram, so that they know if they're looking for 1 milligram, it's on the left, and they want a 10 milligram, it's on the right. Yeah. And they're going to see everything in between. So I've done it like that. Like melatonin's a great seller, but it is on the bottom shelf because it's also a destination item that I don't feel I have to give prime real estate to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we diverge a little bit from some of the norms in that way. And then our biggest responsibility in a way is to think about and anticipate what people's needs are and what their wants are and try to have it. And that is what I really enjoy about retail, actually. I sometimes compare it to sales. A sales position is the salesperson is telling you that there's a void in your life that needs filling.
Right.
Whereas we have to put up the funds and really assume all the risk in buying all of this product and stocking it on our shelves and just sort of hope that somebody wants to walk through the door, that they are looking for something that we can provide. And so it's kind of a swapped relationship in that way. So it's like we never feel like we need to push sales on anybody. That's definitely not a philosophy in our store. There's no commission, anything like that. It's just like we are choosing what we think is a good quality. It's an important product to have. It's something that people will be looking for. And, and then also listening to what customers are asking for and trying to stock those products. That's what we do.
Yeah, that is very important. And the categories that you said are really interesting because over the years we have gotten quite a few compliments on people who say the signage is great. Because if you're brand new and there are quite a few employees walking through the store, which is another thing that even back 17, 18 years ago, I was thinking about, we need to have enough employees because it's not about cutting cost on labor. It is literally, we want to make sure there are enough people on the floor so that when the customer has a question, we can answer it. Plus, you need to have somebody at the register. Boxes come in that have to be unpacked. Prices have to be changed, so somebody has to do that. Inventory has to be taken. People are working on the computers. So all in all, you notice that there are a lot of different tasks that have to be taken care of. And the good thing about that is that you always will find somebody available if you need them, who you can ask as a customer, can you help me find this? Or what is the difference between this and that? The complex formulas is an interesting thing. For example, you go to an immune section, you can find individual products such as elderberry, or you can find medicinal mushrooms, or apricot seeds, or silver, but there are also combination products. And when customers are standing in front of the product, they're not always clear. Well, shall I buy the single herb or vitamin, or shall I use the combination? And you have any thought about that? How would you approach that? Because it is an interesting thing, I want to throw that in as well. Back in 1994, there was a law enacted. It was called the DSHEA law, the Dietary Supplement, Health and Education Act. And it was signed by President Clinton, and it had to do with the separation between Western medicine, prescription drugs, and how to approach vitamins that also come in a bottle, and are also capsules and tablets and tinctures, and just like Western medicine. So do we treat a vitamin, a dietary supplement, as a prescription drug and therefore have it really controlled and make it very complicated, or is it a food item? And the discussion was going back and forth, and eventually it was decided upon that it really is a food item and should be a food supplement, and it should be controlled by the by the Food and Drug Administration. And it was Senator Orrin Hatch from Utah who was actually a very strong proponent. Now, I do believe, because quite a few vitamin supplement companies are in Utah. It's very big. I think that he had quite a few people approaching him and say, we need your help on this. But the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, or DSHEA for short, was enacted in 1994. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when there have been already vitamins, minerals and stuff out for decades, not to the extent that we have right now. But what they said is, if a vitamin supplement, an herb, homeopathy, has been present already before 1994, then it should be accepted as part of the deal. We don't have to go back and do all this research on it to see if it's safe and effective. Other products that come from that would have to have a certain label. They have a certain label requirement, things that have to be said on a label. But if, for whatever reason, somebody would take a supplement and feel a negative side effect from that, then they could contact the Food and Drug Administration and say, I use this product, and the Food and Drug Administration will say, what's the brand name, what's the lot number, what is, who did it, what day was it manufactured, and then the product will be addressed by the company who made it. And so the company will be told, temporarily, you're going to have to recall these products or don't deliver them, take them off the shelf, because we, as the FDA, are going to check if there is anything wrong with this specific batch number. And the FDA will also pay for that research. It's not on to the company to pay for it, or it is pretty clear. And a prescription drug company, a pharmaceutical company, would have to pay for the research. It actually does that ahead of time. When they come out with a product, they do all the research. They know the potential side effects. They will have to clearly label that or be open about that, have an insert inside the bottle. But with the DSHEA, you can come out with products. If there is an issue with it, a customer, the FDA will take responsibility of the product. They will do the research. If it appears there's nothing wrong with the product, then it can go back on the shelf. The good thing about that is that it's not that if you have an allergy to, let's say, a product called Ashwagandha, you take it from a certain company, that they tell every company who makes Ashwagandha, we have to take Ashwagandha off the shelf. They only work with the company that the customer had a problem with. And so have you heard anything else about the DSHEA that you want to share?
Well, I suppose, in a retail environment, the important thing to know, and also maybe for customers to know, is that it does regulate to a great extent what companies can print on their bottles and what, employees at a retail store can say and what kind of claims can be made, because, the point of all of these supplements and the information that goes with them is to not diagnose, treat, or cure any condition, and these are disease states. So there's also a difference between a definition of what is considered basically a disease and what's a normal part of life. For instance, products can be advertised for menopause because that's not a disease. It is just a
fact of life,
a stage of life.
Yeah.
But a dietary supplement cannot be advertised for diabetes. It can be advertised for maintaining normal blood sugar levels already in the normal range, or maintaining healthy blood sugar levels, already in the normal range. You'll see wording like that on bottles.
Yeah.
Which doesn't always inspire great confidence if somebody comes in and says, well, I have diabetes or I have blood sugar issues. But a lot of that language is required by law because they cannot claim to cure a disease. So that's just important to know, I think, as a consumer. And of course,
people could come in and say, I just came from the doctor. I've been diagnosed with a thyroid disorder. I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue. I've been diagnosed with Lyme disease. I've been diagnosed with diabetes. I've been diagnosed with whatever it is, right?
Osteoporosis is another.
Yeah, those are all disorders. And they say, so what supplement shall I take? Then you come in kind of murky water for the retailers. And I do know that, I've done it now for 30 years. You've been doing it for many, many years yourself, on and off, but really solidly, I would say close to 20 years. And I know that when you gather so much knowledge, it's so easy to say, this is great feedback we get from other customers about this specific product. it's not about selling somebody the most expensive product. It is a product that we get feedback from and then say, give this a try. The good thing is, at least, that with dietary supplements, unless you have a prescription drug people get on and it is very difficult to get off. Mm-hmm. Many times they're on for life, or they're on for decades, or at least years. Mm-hmm. With a dietary supplement, I usually tell people, this is enough for 3 weeks, this is enough for a month. See if you notice anything. Mm-hmm. If you notice a 20% improvement, is it worth it for you to say, 20% is 20%, I'm going to do another bottle. Mm-hmm. Or I want to get the bigger size and save a couple dollars. Or that you say, go for a month, and then try it. I wouldn't expect any issues with it. I have a tendency at times to tell customers to maybe take a little bit more than the recommended dose, because let's see, if they haven't noticed anything within 5-6 days, then take a little bit more, see if your body can handle it. You can always go back. Again, it is a food supplement. It's not a they're all chemicals in a way, because that's what I heard once from a chemistry professor. It's all chemicals. But the source is very natural. It's an herb, it's a root, it's a bark, it's a leaf, it's a mineral from a plant, one way or the other. So you are not prescribing something that has been chemicalized to the point where the micrograms or milligrams are super essential. You could actually try a little bit more. Plus, some people are more sensitive than others. Mm-hmm. I don't tell a 250-pound person to take half a tablet and tell a 120 person to take a full tablet, for example, mm-hmm. of the same product. It would probably be the reverse. You just have to work with the customer who's in front of you. I think having enough employees is important, because you can ask them what they have already tried. What mm-hmm. have you tried? Did it work? Well, I haven't tried anything. Have you talked to anybody? You have friends who suggested you come in and look for a dietary supplement? Did you actually work with a naturopathic physician? Did you work with a medical doctor? Have they said anything about a vitamin C or a multivitamin or so? Are you here for that reason? Maybe I'm not allowed to ask those questions according to the DSHEA. Maybe you literally have to stand there and say, this product, let me read the label to you, or you can read the label yourself. What is your feel about this? How far do you feel you can go?
Well, I
think this is important for customers, because they want to know, what can I ask somebody?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did just read a tidbit about, for instance, testimonials is one way. I don't want to say around it, but it is a way to sort of say, like, yeah, this is the feedback that we get, or anything like that, or like, oh, hey, I took that and this is how I felt. They kind of say with testimonials that you really can only use them if it's what a typical customer would expect to experience taking the bottle. So for instance, if it was back in the Dr. Oz heyday, like green coffee bean extract or raspberry ketones, or all these, these weight loss supplements that mm-hmm. were touted for a while, and everybody wanted them. It was like, a testimonial could be, oh, I took that for a month and I lost 30 pounds. Well, that's probably not typical. That's an mm-hmm. outlier. And so we can't use information like that to recommend to a customer, or even to tell them, like, oh, hey, my one friend took it and this is what happened. It's more like, what are common expectations when you take this supplement? Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. Like one brand that I've seen do this very well is Life Seasons. They do, up until very recently, everything that they did was blends, so no single ingredients. That's just changed in the past couple of years. But the book that they give us for reference mm-hmm. has a section on each product about, like, what can consumers expect and what are typical, experiences when taking the product. Like, oh, if you take their formula for, they literally have one called Anxiety-T. And it's like most customers experience a greater sense of calm within 60 minutes of taking it. And then, you know, this builds over time or whatever it is. So they're really talking typical results. And so that's something to, you know, be aware of as a retailer, also as a customer. It's like we have to focus on that median group, not the outliers. That's one thing. And then as far as like what I feel I can say to people, you know, I view my role primarily as helping people to navigate the hundreds, and we have over 5,000 products in the store, and to try to find the one that's going to work for them. So again, within our selection, we have so many different approaches to health. So there are Ayurvedic herbs from India, there are Chinese herbs, there are, you know, typical, more commonly known Western herbs, there are vitamins, minerals, obviously blends of products that go together. There's also homeopathy. There are things like Bach flower remedies. There are so many different approaches. And so I find my role more in asking questions to try to understand what somebody's looking for, what they're willing to take. They say like, well, what's the best product for whatever they're trying to achieve?
And it is funny when they say that, because that's what they hope to find. There must be one product in this section that is your favorite. Tell me now, because then I'm back on the road.
Yeah, and I'm very well. Usually my first question then is like, well, what are you willing to take? Because if they can't swallow a big horse pill, I'm not going to get them a tablet. I'm going to look for either a capsule or a powder, because it's I remember one sales rep years ago said, you know, the most expensive product you'll ever buy is the one that doesn't work or the one that you don't take.
Correct.
I'm like, absolutely. So if, you know, even though I work in this world, like supplements go to my fridge to die. I don't buy refrigerated supplements because I will never remember them. I just don't. So if somebody's, you know, there's a very common question in probiotics, like, aren't the refrigerated ones better? And I'm like, not really, because not if you don't
anymore.
take it. Well, and especially not if you don't take it. But also, there are advances in the packaging technology, really, in probiotics that make them more shelf stable. And so anymore, it doesn't really matter, you know, but so long as if you're not going to keep it in the fridge, buy one that is marketed as being shelf stable, and, you know, and vice versa. So, it's like, I don't want to spend my money on a refrigerated product that I'm never going to use. So those are all questions that I need to ask a customer to understand which product is going to be a good fit for them. If somebody, you know, doesn't believe in homeopathy, they think like, well, it's just snake oil because it's so diluted. There's no trace of the sort of mother tincture or the original ingredient in there. Then I'm not going to sell them homeopathy. But on the other hand, if maybe they're on a lot of prescriptions, homeopathy is usually considered a very safe option that's not contraindicated. So it's like, and, you know, a little tube of the little pills is like $8 or $9. So you're talking like, I'm not going to break the bank by trying it. I'm not going to have contraindications by trying it. So it's kind of like a why not in that situation. But it's all those questions that you have to ask.
And it's really well researched. If you talk about just mentioning homeopathy, it's been around for 275 years. It was invented by a medical doctor back in the day. He just said we have to do something different than doing bloodletting and putting leeches on bodies in order to clean them up. And, you know, he said we have to become more humane in how we treat people. 275 years ago, my God, we have learned a lot since then. But homeopathy is a very interesting philosophy, and there is more than 1,200 different individual products, I would say. And then those can all have different dilutions. But homeopathy, some people come in and say, I work with a homeopathic doctor. Well, it's not homeopathic, it's homeopathic. And what they think a homeopathic doctor is a naturopathic doctor. Homeopathy, a naturopath may include homeopathic remedies or suggestions in their practice, But an actual doctor in homeopathy is somebody who just does homeopathy. They don't get involved in vitamins and herbs, etc. So it's an interesting philosophy, and I recommend that listeners and viewers will at some point grab a book when they go in a retail store and look a little bit, what is homeopathy, how can it help me? Because I do know that children especially react very quickly to homeopathy, but many adults also have great success. So, and homeopathy is completely approved by the FDA. Sometimes they say, well, it's not completely approved. Well, it was approved by the FDA because it has never shown a negative side effect from people trying it. If you use the wrong remedy, it's neutral. It doesn't cause it doesn't cause the negative effect of what you take it for. So that is important to know. And the other thing I feel with dietary supplements, some of them are really a nutrient that you're probably deficient in. I always look at vitamins, fats, proteins, minerals as a nutrient that we may need because we're deficient in it. I look at herbs more as a therapy that Mother Nature provides. Many of the prescription drugs are actually extracts, but then synthesized of an herb, of a natural herb. And so the herb has more the therapeutic value. It will do that. I don't think that an herb is considered a nutrient in the sense of a vitamin A or a B vitamin or D or minerals in that sense, or if you're lacking essential fatty acids, fish oil, flax oil, that to me is a nutrient. But an herb has more a trigger effect. It does something to the immune system. It does something to the glands. It does something to the ligaments. It helps that part. And that's a difference, I would say. It's more a reactionary supplement.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with
So
that.
looking at that, I'm mentioning a few categories here. What do you notice are, you mentioned earlier Dr. Oz, when Dr. Oz was really on TV and talking about weight loss. I remember the raspberry ketones and the green coffee bean extract. And there was a few other ones. I think he talked about CLA.
Garcinia.
Garcinia, Cambodia, that's right. What would you consider today, in general, what are most customers, what do they come in for? What are some of the categories you notice always are top 5?
Yeah, our top 5 are definitely, the name letter vitamins. So in our store, when I look at a report, vitamins is a top category, and that's just, vitamins A through K, basically. Digestion is a huge...
Do vitamins sell more than multivitamins?
Yeah, I mean, there's more of them in a way if you think about it. You have vitamin A, B, C, D, E, K. So that's a lot to choose from. So yeah, just from like a quantity of sales standpoint, they are more popular. I don't have strong opinions about, how people should go about supplementing. I see us more as a receptive body for what people want. I'm here to provide. I'm not here to tell them how to supplement. But I do remember years ago going to a lecture from a raw materials manufacturer, and they talked about common nutrient deficiencies, and they had done a study where they looked at people who took no supplements, people who took a la carte supplements, so like, I'll just take iron, I'll just take vitamin D, whatever, and then people who took a multivitamin, and they were looking at the common deficiencies, I think specifically in America, and, they were looking at magnesium, iron, D, I can't remember some of the others, but the surprising thing was that the multivitamin group had the fewest overall deficiencies. And philosophically, that makes sense to me because so many of the vitamins need each other to work well. Like you can take all the calcium in the world, but if you don't take magnesium, D, and K, you're not going to absorb it well, and especially not absorb it into the part of the body where you want it, which is your bones.
Yeah.
So for me, that made sense. A lot of people say like, well, a multivitamin has such low potencies, like you're never getting enough of what you need. You know, vitamin D, maybe they put 400 IUs in there, which technically is, I think, the RDA.
Yeah.
But we find in Montana at a high latitude and, 6 months of winter, and you're mostly covering your skin year round, and applying sunscreen in the summer, is like most people are taking more than 400 IUs of vitamin D to achieve a level that they want. So you would think, again, like a multivitamin isn't gonna do a lot, isn't gonna be enough. But generally speaking, I'm a fan of multivitamins just to kind of cover your bases, because you don't always know where the gaps are in your diet. We don't get a lot of vitamin K naturally in our diet, and there's so much new research on how important it is, again, for the absorption of calcium, for your bone health, for your arterial health. So, taking a multi that has a vitamin K2 in it is a good thing in my book. But yeah, multivitamins are popular, but not as big of a category as the letter vitamins in general. Another big one is minerals. I do see magnesium very heavily advertised anyway, on social media. But it is very popular.
I think that's good.
It is. I mean,
it's a relatively inexpensive mineral with a tremendous amount of benefits.
Yeah, I mean, it's involved in, I think, 300 enzymatic
400 plus
enzymatic processes in the body. They estimate, I've seen estimates that, anywhere from about 65 up to 85% of people are deficient. I've seen different numbers in that range thrown around. And a big cause of that is because our diet has become much more processed. We don't eat as much, kind of whole foods.
Yep.
The soil's depleted, so we don't get very many minerals coming out of the soil.
Yeah.
And so, they're just finding that a lot of people are magnesium deficient. And, some of the things they might experience are like muscle cramps, leg cramps.
What I would,
there's a lot of
people
issues.
say, what are the benefits of magnesium? I usually say it's a phenomenal muscle relaxer, right? It regulates blood pressure. So if the blood pressure is too low, it brings it up. If it is too high, it brings it down. It strengthens the heart muscle. So it relaxes muscles, but it strengthens the heart muscle. Magnesium gives you more energy. Magnesium balances blood sugars. It is necessary to pull the calcium from the small intestine into the bloodstream that goes to the liver. So you need magnesium to take the calcium to the liver, and it is involved in more than 400 different enzymes. Some people say 600, but a lot. Different enzymatic functions inside the body. When you eat something, it needs to be broken down. Whatever is broken down needs to get broken down again to something else, and that needs to get broken down into something else before it eventually becomes a micronutrient that the cells can absorb. Magnesium plays a part in more than 400 of those processes. Zinc, it plays in more than 300 enzyme functions. So magnesium, I can totally understand, and it is frustrating at times when people come in a store and they'll see all these magnesiums. They don't know what to pick.
Yeah. So like the minerals are a commonly, I would say, confusing category for people, because with the minerals, you don't just see like the word calcium on the label. It usually says calcium citrate or calcium lactate, or it could be any number of things. And the same as with magnesium. And so people go like, well, which one do I pick? And that is, it is a challenge. I think, what you're looking at is the minerals are bound to something else to help carry them into the body and into the cells and help them absorb. And the different ways that they are bound to those other nutrients can affect, of course, other benefits that they offer. For instance, magnesium glycinate is like probably the most popular form right now. Glycine is an amino acid that is also calming. You'll see it in a lot of stress formulas, sleep formulas, things like that. So, and again, there I'm seeing it advertised a lot online for sleep, stress, all of those types of things, which is a common problem these days. So I think that's,
I think it's also good for reducing sugar cravings.
and that could be, but it's, that's responsible for its big rise in the magnesium ranks, so to say.
Yeah.
I mean, a few years ago, we maybe had 1 or 2 magnesium glycinates, and now we've got like 15 to choose from in, capsules, powders, tablets, soft gels, any format that you want.
Liquid.
Yeah, all
Bath
of those things.
salts.
Yeah. Well, not the glycinates, but yes,
Not the
magnesium in
glycinate,
general.
magnesium, yeah.
But, what's confusing too when you look at the minerals is the potencies. And so, for instance, like a magnesium oxide, you might see a single capsule is 500 milligrams of magnesium, whereas with magnesium glycinate, you'll be hard pressed usually to find a capsule that's 100 milligrams. And the reason is that it is because of how that process happens, and they call it chelation. They're combining the magnesium with the glycine or citric acid in the case of magnesium citrate, or with taurine in the case of magnesium taurate. And there's different ratios necessary for all of those blends, I guess, to happen. I don't claim to be a chemist, but so glycine, there's a lot more glycine in proportion to the magnesium in that blend compared to magnesium oxide or some of the other formats. And so that's why you just cannot get 500 milligrams of magnesium glycine in a pill. It would be, this big or whatever. So it's confusing to people. It's confusing because sometimes the front of the bottle will say 350 milligrams, and then really small it'll say per serving, and you have to turn the bottle over and say, well, how many are in a serving? Because if you just read 350 milligrams and you think you take one and you're getting the benefits of 350 milligrams,
Correct.
You're not.
No.
It's in 4, for instance, in a lot of our brands. And so all of those things, for a consumer to weed through, to try to understand, it's complicated. And that's why, you want to have an educated staff and enough staff to be able to approach customers individually and ask them if they need help and help them understand all of these different options that are in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's minerals basically.
Yeah.
And you asked about other categories that are very big right now. Obviously, especially since COVID, immune health has just skyrocketed. It skyrocketed during COVID. People were looking for ways to take care of themselves in anticipation of, getting sick or trying not to. So we saw a huge increase there, and it just really hasn't waned since. And then
people also indeed feel they want to start taking care of their own health better, and they feel, I got to take care of my immune system. So what can I do?
Yeah, and even societal norms have sort of changed since COVID in that aspect, where I would say it was often, especially in America, where we value our work so much and it's so much of our identity. Other countries sometimes say Americans live to work and other countries work to live. So our identity is so wrapped up in what we do for work, and it's like almost a badge of pride to say I'm so busy all the time. Or to go to work when you're sick and to work through, a cold and still be showing up at work. And ever since COVID, that's really, changed because people don't want, their coworker to show up sick. I've got kids now in elementary school, and you have to keep your kids out of school for 24 hours after their fever broke or after they last threw up. And those are all things I absolutely understand. But just the sensitivity to being around people that are sick has changed significantly since COVID. And so I think that too has contributed to the focus on immune health, because it's like, you don't even want to get sick, period. And I don't even want to have a sniffle. I don't, because, sometimes customers come in and they're like, whoa, do I hear a sniffle? Do you sound nasally? They're really, really cautious.
How can you be sick when you work in a health food store?
It happens occasionally. But you shouldn't be sick for 2 weeks.
We just say we're detoxing.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just think like for myself, I have a little cocktail that I take if I feel like I'm coming down with something, and it's usually like I kick it in a day or two, and I'm shocked when I get customers that say I've had this cold for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm just like, yeah, something went wrong at the start there because it shouldn't last that long.
Yeah.
So yeah, the immune health, of course, is a huge category, and probably the other really big one right now that people are concerned with is digestive health, and there's just a lot of issues there. I don't know all the reasons
It is.
why.
That is such an interesting topic. We can do a whole show just on digestion because it's many people's misunderstanding, and some people have had their gallbladder taken out, so now they have problems. They need to know what to do. Some people have issues with constipation or diarrhea or Crohn's, colitis, diverticulitis. They come in, they want to understand what they can do. And so you're looking more into the intestinal health, the probiotics, for example, the butyric acid. Then you have people who have a problem within the first 45 minutes after they start eating, so it's probably stomach related. So then you're looking into enzymes. So there is a difference between enzymes and probiotics. So the enzymes are more in the upper part of the body. The probiotics are more in the small intestine and the colon. So you try to understand where the issue is, then try to give them suggestions. Some people really would do well with taking a daily fiber supplement so that they can keep themselves regular, so to say. There is the idea about not drinking water before, during, or after you eat, so to let the acid in the stomach do its job. There's a lot going on about that. That's a big topic. We're coming close to the end of the show. Another one I think is pretty big these days is hormones.
Yeah, we don't. So hormones is indeed one of our biggest categories, and that's sort of our label that we put on it just so we know where things are in the store. But it does encompass basically, men's health, like sexual health, prostate, testosterone support, women's health, which would be, the PMS, menopause, perimenopause, women's sexual health too. And then all of there are specific hormone products like progesterone, there's DHEA, there's pregnenolone. So those are actual hormones. There's other things like estrogen scavengers, estrogen detox as another way of trying to balance hormones. So that's all in that category, but also in that category in our store, just falling under that umbrella is all of the glandular health, really. I could say adrenal health, thyroid health, and those are really big categories for us too, because again, when we talk to customers, it's often like they might say, I'm not sleeping well, or I'm really stressed out, or dealing with anxiety or things like that. And it's not always like, well, let me just give you a formula for sleep. It's like maybe your adrenals are off and your cortisol's off, and maybe the more long game is trying to support your adrenal glands because you're stressed out all the time. We are overstimulated as a society, I would say. We're always seeking stimulation anymore. So, and that's really not the way our bodies are built. They're not meant to be processing information like 24/7, which it seems like we are. So yeah, balancing the adrenal glands and supporting them with, formulas that maybe have some of the, what they call adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, schizandra. Those are all really common adrenal supporting herbs. And typically people won't, for instance, notice an immediate help in their sleep patterns, but more long term, they'll probably see improved sleep quality. So that's just a very big category right now because, stress is such a big concern in our society.
Yeah, plus I do believe that in the last 50 years, we have seen a change in the environment as far as estrogens have been implemented a lot, and those are affecting the groundwater, the soil, the foods, the meat, cell phones, plastics, it's a big issue. And so the hormones have become definitely a lot more popular because people read on the internet, they go to Dr. Google, and they find out that could actually be an issue. Let me go to a health food store and see if I can find something to help me with that hormonal imbalance. And we don't sell prescription hormones, but it is more things that are made from Mother Nature that help the body's natural production of a progesterone, of a testosterone, of an estrogen, of a DHEA, of a pregnenolone that you mentioned. So these hormones are getting support so that the body can stimulate their own production again. And that can make a big difference once the hormones are working.
Yeah.
I would like to talk to you again and then maybe talk about some how to read a label, how to understand when you pick up a bottle, what do you look for, such as fish oils and stuff, digestive, when we look at a label, what are we actually paying attention to? I hope you come back, that we do that. Mm-hmm. All right.
Of course, we're happy to.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for viewing. I hope you will tune in again to listen to Rebecca and to learn more about what's happening in a supplement retail store and maybe what some of the questions are that you can ask. And hopefully you tune in and look up other episodes that I have on this forum and Health in Focus. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day.